ankles. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're talking about pregnancy pain and pelvic instability and just general low back pain. So one of the big problems is the pelvic floor. And it could be weak, it could be tight. A lot of times we're dealing with rotational issues too, where the pelvis is twisted, the sacrum is twisted. So then we'll have a pelvic floor weak on one side. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
Or tight on the other side. And that has a lot to do with our hips. So we'll work on maybe going like lighter today. So when, especially if you're pregnant, you don't want to go 100%. So let's get you some foam rollers here. I'll show you on the foam roller first. It's good there's only a few of you today because I only have a few foam rollers. Actually, let me see if I got a bonus foam roller here. We do. It's a foam roller miracle. Yeah, 'cause sitting on a kettlebell is no fun. All right. So one of the great exercises is the squat. So we're going to do kind of a slowed down squat, and we're not going to sit right on the foam roller right now. We're just going to get closer and closer to it. So let's think about decompressing first, pulling the hips back, squat a little deeper, and then drop the squat a little bit more. And then we'll push, drive the knees out, drive up straight out of that, and repeat. Let's do about that 10 times, a little deeper each time. Hinge, set the hips up, squat, little half squat, and then nice and deep. Drive up out of it. Keep going. I'm going to put my mic behind me here. Keep seeing if you can sink a little bit deeper, get closer to that foam roller. It's okay if you can't get all the way down. Always like to take a breath beforehand, lengthen, open up that lumbar spine. No back seat teaching. Squat down, push out. Think about the tripod of the foot. So yeah, we want the weight in the heels, but as we get to the bottom, it's okay to have knees over toes. That's okay. Starting, yeah, we're pulling that weight back, but don't let it pull your feet up. You're still gripping. The feet are, they're gripped. And I'm pulling down, and then as I get in here, that's when I really let those knees kind of come past the toes. That's when you'll feel that ankle mobility. Yeah. And then pressing up out of it, nice and strong. Let's go all the way down, all the way down to the foam roller. I need some water apparently. Try to squat your way down to it. We'll give Heather my foam roller here in a second. So I'm just going to do it like this. Breathing big and tall, hinging back, squatting, and then just driving back. Let's sit right on that guy. Roll left and right. So we're going to check for a little ligament muscle called the sacrotuberous. It's not a pelvic floor guy, but it has a lot to do with the sacrum and rotation. So it's kind of an extension of your hamstring. Hamstring comes up, attaches here, the ischial tuberosity, and then runs to that sacrum. So you should be able to feel this left to right. Usually when I'm checking you guys on the tables, one's a little tighter than the other. So you can kind of hang out there. I'll give you this in a second.
That's okay.
Just want to demonstrate. And then I want you to check, rotate left, try to put like your armpit on your knee, shift the other way. Usually you feel, oh, that rotation is a little harder on one side. If you feel one side's tougher, reach and just hang out there, and you should feel that hit the opposite in between that tailbone and your hip, the pelvis, that sacrotuberous ligament. And just rotate there. And let's give this to Heather. I will sit on the hard kettlebell. A ball works well too. Maybe a firmer ball, like a medicine ball would work well.
Right.
This, at least it's got a little covering on it. Sitting on an egg.
Yeah.
And this could be really...
Are you videoing this one?
Yeah, we're videoing this one. You might be in there. No, you're good. You're slightly out of it. We don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it can be a very sensitive area. Just enough to breathe into it. So now we're going to activate the pelvic floor by breathing, especially if you found which side is harder to rotate. Think about kind of lengthening just from like the groin area up as you breathe, pulling that belly in. So we're just lengthening, almost like you're doing a Kegel exercise. Pulling in, that's going to activate, because then you're pushing the pelvis down, chest is lifting, neck is lifting, pushing the ground away, getting tall, and then slowing the breath down is important. So we're thinking 5 seconds in, and pelvic floor really gets hit when you slowly let the air out. 5, 6 seconds, inhale, exhale. Let's do a few of those. Especially if you feel like that rotation to one side, it's very corrective. So if that pelvic floor is twisted, you can kind of guide the whole body and twist everything up. So you could breathe into one side. Since I'm twisting, my right arm's going forward, I'm breathing into my left psoas region. So psoas attaches to the diaphragm. So I'm breathing more on the left side, trying to pull that in, rotating one side over the other. All right, let's give our butts a break, and we'll go kind of into a butterfly position. So feet together. I'm sure this is more comfortable for you than it is for me. Check that balance. Again, it's great about the foam rollers. You can kind of roll, kind of massage one side over the other. These foam rollers are nice because they're nice and squishy.
That's kind of weird.
Some foam rollers are a little rough. They're pretty much like a kettlebell. Let's just push, stretch, push those knees down, get a little stretch on the inner thigh. And then we're going to do a little activation. We're going to pull the knees towards each other. As you get taller, again, you're kind of zipping up. You're lengthening that area, pulling in, getting tall. And I'll change angles here for you Facebook guys.
That's amazing you can do it.
So stretch. Keep that same pattern of breathing. 5 seconds in. Strong exhale. Really like purse your lips together. Let the air slowly out. Change that angle a little bit. Do you want to do some modeling today, Heather?
Well, it depends. Not doing this.
Yeah. So we're
it's hard to
pushing. Chest comes up, belly's pulling in. We're lengthening that lumbar spine, opening up. And then when you stretch, don't let your body shrink. Just pull the hips open.
Can you sit on one of these without feeling?
This is probably more stable, but it hurts more. All right, let's go up. So now, because before we were knees over toes, now we're going to do more foundation training. So we're going to bring the feet out. Let the feet grip. Think about the tripod of the foot gripping the ground. And you're lifting, stacking your torso over the hips, breathing here. And just go. Yeah, you're squeezing just a little bit, not where you shrink. It's more important to get tall. As you get tall, your legs will kind of want to drop out, so you're just kind of keeping them where they're at. If you got any low back pain or you're pregnant, 30-40%. Don't want to go heavy on this. Just think about the breathing. You're not like Heather shaking like crazy, 100%. Just concentrate on that pelvic floor to diaphragm. Gauging, spreading those muscles out.
That's cool.
And we're pulling ourselves, that psoas muscle's pulling us forward. What we don't want, and a lot of us do this, especially me, around this L3 area, we'll tend to kind of arch, and that'll get pinched. So if you get pain down to the quads, you probably are extending from there instead of using the hips to bring you forward and you're lengthening. So you can even think about that area as you're kind of inflating those discs. If this is hurting, just get off it. Pull up, get tall, especially at that L3 area, right where your belly button is. That's around where L3 is. You're just pulling that back, lengthening, and you should feel a lot of restricted tissue there.
Yeah.
That's an area that just wants to be here. And then we'll posture up and we'll make it worse by driving it forward. Really make sure you're pulling yourself up, hips come back, driving that out. It's definitely a mental game. You really got to think about that.
Yeah, this is a hard one.
All right, let's get out of that position. If you can, squat out of it. Get there, just drive up. Good. Good balance test. I'm proud of all of you.
We have a dancer amongst us.
So how does that feel after that? Usually release that muscle.
Yeah, it feels
It's
loose.
pretty amazing because that muscle can control a lot. Might be a little sore though. You guys feel anything left or right to the tailbone? One side being a little tighter than the other, sensitive?
My right side's tighter.
You felt it? Yep. I'd say most people, it's the left. So it might be tighter, it might be more painful. So just kind of pay attention to what feels, is it painful or does it feel restricted? And that rotation will really let you know.
Oh,
So most people, I said, are tighter on the left, so it would be harder to rotate right, reach that right arm over the knee. So did you feel any of that going left to right when you were down there? Think of to the right, to the right.
that's a good one.
Because a lot of people, so the hamstring goes here, so this tends to be pulled this way in a lot of people. So then the sacroiliac joint gaps. So it's very open to spraining, especially when you're pregnant, the ligaments are going to relax. So we need the muscles to do the jobs of the joint, hold everything together. So the glutes are a big part of that, so as it's all going to help suction these guys in, especially if this is rotating inwards and this is very tight here to here. And they could be tight on both sides, it's possible. That's more of your like posterior pelvic tilt, anterior pelvic tilt when it's one side over the other. But most of us have a little rotation as well that we're trying to deal with. Especially if you got pain here, don't like always dig in there, massage there. Think about below here. And then here in the hip joint, getting that mobility. So let's try our squat out again after we did that. Let's go a little wider. We'll get more like sumo squat. It's okay to have the feet out a little bit.
Are we going to sit on this again?
No, you're not. That's something you don't want to do a lot of. Even what we did was probably too much. We're just running you through some stuff. So if it hurts, I'm sorry. It's good. Better do a little bit and build on it the next day. You got time. So let's see if that squat feels any better. Let's decompress. Let the toes come out a little bit. You don't have to be here. Let them out. Let the hips come out a little bit. And let's pull the hips behind us. And then reach the arms forward as we come into a bit of a squat. This is a good position to have, something like a prop, like if I was going to do this to the table. Just pretend. Or a stool. Thank you. I'm going to borrow it. We'll team squat. Hinge. Pulling the hips back, and I'm squatting. I'm not going to reach with the hands. It's my hips that are bringing me there. Don't let the knees go too far past the toes here, just a little bit. As you get deeper, that's when you can really exacerbate that. The reason I don't want it now is because if we start, the pelvic and the lumbar spine starts going forward. But not so much where we're totally back either. Grip the ground. That's usually a good idea that your feet are there, so the balls of the feet are still gripping. We don't have excessive weight on the heels, but we don't have excessive weight in the toes. It's equal and dispersed. Breathe, get tall, inhale, hinge back, and we'll come down, squat. Pretend like you got a prop there, so you're nice and low. And we're just going to breathe away from your hands, just like at an angle. Pushing. Get closer to the prop there, Heather. So if it's far away from the prop, you're like, oh, I can't reach the prop. And you end up like doing that. So it's actually good to kind of start pretty close to it because you're pulling the hips away a lot.
Okay.
And then I'm squatting
Oh yeah, pretty
right
close.
there. So I don't want to be hinging, squatting, being like, no. Let's get some stools out here. So we got props for everyone. Props. Nice little table or side of your bed works. Little coffee table. So you're going to go down to that prop. We're doing some gorilla lifts. So hinging back, squatting, press into that. And you're going to take your right palm, we're going to reach up, squat a little deeper as the hand raises. Keep the hand on the prop. Come back down with the right hand. Lift the left up. Get a little deeper. Chest comes up with the hand. You don't want to be doing that. Let the whole body go with it. Keep that length in the spine. Let's do a few rotations here. Keep the knees pressing out. Don't let them cave in. We want them active, especially as we hinge. We squat, the knees are driving out. Make way for that belly. Reaching up. And I like the hand on the stool because then you can actively push into it. Kind of like we did the windmills before. Just enough light pressure, not so the stool's sliding away. You also want the knees to go over the toes because sometimes the knees do too much movement. Let the hips do some as well.
It's a lower back pain. No?
If it's hurting here, no. Just don't go as deep. You can make this stool a little taller. Try that out.
Okay.
Let's see where you're at. Do you want to do this on front of the camera? All right, let's have you stand here, face that way.
I don't mind.
Let's see if we can spot anything. Get nice and close to it. Decompress. So you're going to lengthen. Really spread those fingers. Yeah, get them big and spread. Take a few breaths, pulling that in. You're lengthening this area. And sometimes we start hinging too early. Get up big and tall first.
I think I do.
Don't hinge right away. Take some time to decompress before you hinge. Sometimes we hinge, you get that arch, and that starts that L3. Remember that L3? It starts pulling forward. So make sure you're up here big and tall first. You're pulling it back. Don't automatically come into that hinge position. It's not really a hinge, it's an extension. So we don't want that extension. Get that extension out of there. Pulling in, tripod of the foot, gripping, weights in the heels. Then pull the hips back. Don't let the spine arch with it. Keep that really tight in the core. Let the hips travel back. Then squat. Driving the knees out. Find that prop with the hands.
Like that?
Good.
I'm right on the edge of tipping.
How do you feel in there? Is it hurting?
Not yet.
Does it feel like it's going to hurt?
No. No.
Good.
So that's a good light.
Do it one more time. Maybe turn the feet out a little bit. There you go. It's okay to have a little external rotation. I know I always yell at you for that. Other way. You turned them in, didn't you? Turn them out. Turn them out. Turn them out. There you go. I'm like, they're more in than they were before.
Okay.
Spread your toes. Think about that tripod. Get out of that hinge. Pull this back. Right there.
I need to start at that basic.
Yeah, start at the basic. Then once you're lengthened, you've opened up that spine. Then you pull the hips back. Then I'll come behind you.
Like that?
And then squat, drop the butt, raise the arms at the same time. And then lower the arms down. You can lower the arms down. You don't have to squat deep like that.
Oh.
So what I do is I'll
Let's see.
set up big and tall, pull the hips back, and then I'm going to squat just keeping the hands at an angle.
Oh.
I don't want them up here because I'm actually taller here.
Right.
Better
Okay,
position.
that helps.
And then I'm actively pushing in as I'm raising. Again, if this hurts, don't push it. Take it slow. And coming out of this, really push up. Take your time. Don't arch out of it. Keep it strong. All right, let's give our backs a break. That was a lot.
That was a lot.
Let's go on our knees. And let's go nice and wide. You can have the feet just down. Somebody throw me a foam roller. All right. I lied. We're using the foam roller again.
Okay.
Don't have to. You can kind of start here on the foam roller. Legs are wide for the belly. I'm just going to roll that foam roller out. And just breathe right there. So the hips are already pulled back. If you want to go deeper, put the foam roller a little farther in front of you and then just roll. Don't let your body go forward. Keep that butt kind of down towards the feet. That way the tailbone's tractioning, pulling away from the upper body. Let that stretch. This kind of forces that low back to open up. I just like this with the foam roller versus like child's pose. I feel like I just can't get as open.
Right.
And a lot of people tend to do that.
That's what I always do.
So here we can kind of keep the hips back. And it's gradual, it's safer. You can kind of roll, ease your way into it. This works against a wall too. Just put the foam roller right on the wall. Make sure you're pulling the hips back. Don't let the hips come forward. And don't get super arched. You want to kind of round a little bit. So then you can think about that breathing, decompression breathing. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds slowly out. Pulling that belly away from the floor. Come roll up out of that. Let's go on our backs. Another good exercise is the bridge. But usually I like it with some weight. We don't have weight today, so we'll just make the bridge harder. So we'll make it an anchored bridge. If it hurts laying on your back, don't do it, but bring the knees to a subtle bend. Loose knees, don't lock them out, but don't have them like your normal bridge. Normal bridge is okay if you got a band and you go really wide and just slowly lift the hips up. Like a circle band, that's good. Driving those knees out because that'll close down these SI joints. Ooh, what did I do? Trying to make Phil fall over. Closing those joints down, these sacroiliac joints, by having the legs nice and wide. Let's try that variation first. Normal bridge, so bend the knees and go wide with it. Nice and wide. Knees nice and wide. Almost like you're going towards that butterfly position. Pretend like you got some pressure. You can even use your hands. And then press the hips up. You notice you won't be able to get the hips very high, but that's very good for the sacroiliac joints. Now we'll try the anchored bridge. Feet out. A little bend now. Let's first pull our belly button in. Just so you're pressing the base of the ribs down into the mat. Turn the hips in like you're rolling a scroll together. Feet, toes pulling up towards your nose. Inner thighs stay hugging, but we're not arching. We're keeping that first step engaged. That belly tight, ribs down to the mat. Feet dorsiflexing, inner thighs hugging. Fingertips pressing into the mat on either side of the hip. Just the fingertips, not your elbows, because that makes you arch. So you want enough, like even walk your fingers, so walk your shoulders down, get your neck nice and long. And then you're gonna almost press with the back of your head. So then the back of your skull is pulling towards your heels. So don't think lift, think pull yourself off the ground. Your hips are gonna come just a little bit up. And just breathe, slow, controlled, steady breaths. If you want, you can float the hands up. It's just as hard keeping them down. I kind of like it. Whatever makes you feel the more tension is better. You don't have to get fancy. If you feel your spine compressing, something's wrong. Let's go back to the first bridge. Bend the knees in. Still get that lumbar spine nice and lengthened. Push the knees out. Raise those hips up. And I'm more about the isometrics here. A lot of people are like, oh, I need to do 50 bridges, so they're just kind of going up and down. If you take it nice and slow and you're active about it, that's better than a lot of reps. Just holding it, breathing at the top. Good job pressing out into your hands, pressing in into your hands. Again, it's nice to have a band there. And then slowly coming back down. And if you're in pain, 30-40%, don't get super crazy with it. Let's do one more of the anchored bridge. So anchored bridge, the legs are long. You're gonna feel it more in the hamstrings.
Yeah.
Think decompression, get that belly in nice and tight. Roll the hips in, big toes together. Straighten those knees out a little, Heather. More.
There you go?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh.
Fingertips pressing against the mat, not the elbows. Walk your fingertips down, get your neck nice and long. And then think about your heels pulling towards your skull and your hips raise as you do that. It's kind of nice and shaky, but it's good. Let's run through it one more time. That one's a tricky one. You can watch me if you need to.
Wow.
Getting my belly set first, maybe taking a few breaths, decompression. Then I'm going to think about inhaling, lengthening the lumbar spine, pulling the hips towards each other, pulling the feet towards my nose. Hands are reaching. Back of the skull is lifting. I'm setting it on the ground. So the head is actually helping me squeeze, pull my hips up.
That helps.
So the head should be doing a lot of work. I think it flowed up. Put more pressure on the head if you want.
Hamstring city, huh?
Hamstring city. Good.
But using your head helps a lot.
It's good for the neck. It's a good reset. A lot of us are here, so we're forcing that to push back.
Wow.
Let's go on the knees. Tuck those toes in. Walk the feet nice and wide. Get the inner thighs together. Turn myself here. Let's decompress. Let's go into hip hugger. So don't think about the inner thighs squeezing so much as they're rotating, turning in. So as they rotate in, don't let your body arch. Rotate in, the belly's pulling in with them. Everything's kind of closing down here, even the belly, all that tissue. And as they pull in, get your weight out of your toes, kind of lean forward. Has to happen together. You can't let the inner thighs pull in and steal from the spine. And I'll set you up by saying do the belly first. It's actually best if they both happen as one, but it's better to just think about pulling in tight, then maybe adding the hips, but eventually it's kind of I'm lengthening, not allowing my body to compress. Happens faster. Hip hugger, elbow squeeze now. Good, we're closing down that pelvic floor. You might even feel it activating there deep. And relax. No, you should feel it everywhere. Okay. So obturator internus is a muscle that a lot of pelvic floor muscles attach to. So that does run from your hip, runs through that. So sciatic notch is what your piriformis runs through. Everyone loves that one. But the lesser sciatic notch is your obturator internus runs through. And a lot of the pelvic floor muscles attached there. So there's a lot of individual muscles. I think it's just one big muscle. It's like your diaphragm. It's a lot of different little muscles going on, different attachment points. So it can be weak and strong and tight and overstretched all at the same time. Like if you're sneezing and some fluids coming out, it's probably a weak pelvic floor. But it can definitely be contracted just from like stress and engaging. So let's attack that from another angle. Standing, we're gonna do the leg trace. So I guess we're kind of bringing it back to some of our running. Since we're doing a lot of running, we're doing a lot of balance stuff. This is a good test for your core, because if you can stand on one leg pretty easily, you'll notice your core kind of fires a lot. So if the balance is bad, it could be a bad ankle. Like I've had surgery, so my right ankle is always like, oh. Could be core, could be ankle, could be a lot of different things. But if you don't really have ankle trouble and you just have trouble balancing, it might be a core issue. So let's practice taking that hip, turning it in. So we're going to fight against that obturator internus muscle. Even though it's an internus, it's an external rotator. So pulling it in, poorly named. Pulling it in, heel touches the shin. Tripod of the foot is pushing away from the ground. Trace that leg up, up, up. And as this zips up, think about zipping up that same breathing area. Kind of that pubic bone pulling down and away from your diaphragm. You feel that kind of tighten on that other side. Try pressing heel into the shin, shin pressing back. Let's press into this knee a little bit, 10 pounds of pressure. Again, if you're in pain, don't be too crazy with this one. Pull that toe up, dorsiflex. Take the skull, lift it away. Back of the skull lifting. More length you get in the spine, the more that balance is going to be tested. Closing this down, very important. Shake that off. Test the balance on the other foot. Think about rotating that leg in, setting that shin up. Tracing, knees coming across the body. You feel that adductor working. Light press in there. Make sure that belly's pulling in, tightening as we bring that up. We don't want to be here, right? Maintain the height, length. Good. Actively pulling, dorsiflexing the foot up. It makes a change, you'll feel it. Just trying to activate the whole leg, all the muscles.
That helps.
Make them work. That's when you'll really feel that that fascial stretch in places you're not used to feeling a stretch.
I missed you just doing that. Oh, I missed you.
And just hang out there. Last piece to add, neck. And that's what really gets my balance going. It's like, oh.
Yeah, that goes down.
'Cause normally I can kind of maintain, especially my right surgery ankle. So you start adding length. Ooh, it's hard on the body. The body likes being compressed. We're good balancers here. So you start adding length. Oh, okay. Challenge. That's good. Don't forget to breathe.
All right.
Sometimes you can just kind of trace and breathe. You can inhale, big and strong. Exhale. Other arm for balance. I just kind of think long wings. It helps pull my shoulders down, get my neck nice and long. And once you find that weak ankle, just work that one. It's the right one. Running class, we've been doing a lot of this stuff, and then taking this to add different things. You can go into like your RDL, straight leg deadlift. You can add weight. You can transition, go to like a subtle pistol squat. That knee will start coming out past the toe. That's good. You'll really feel that ankle jam if you got some ankle problems. I think both of you have good ankles.
Yeah.
I think we're struggling over here.
Comes with girls.
Shrimp squat's good too. The shrimp, you're just trying to get the knee down without touching the foot first. I can't do it. Let's see if anyone else can.
What you try to do?
So don't put the foot down. You're trying to just let that knee come all the way down to the floor. Keeping the heel down.
We'll work on that.
This helps to hold on to something.
Right, if you do that, you can practice.
But you could feel that ankle like, ooh, jammed up a little bit. That's all good stuff too. Get those ankles nice and mobile. They don't get enough love because they're in shoes all day, flat surfaces all day. So even pretending like you're gripping and grabbing something when you're walking does help, makes a difference. All right, let's run through a little workout. We'll do one of the pregnancy ones. It's nothing special, it's just some of the stuff we've already done.
Dinner first, huh?
No.
You can hold the kettlebell as a baby.
What?
You want a 35-pound baby?
Yeah.
So we'll do the split stance one here. So we didn't talk about this stuff. Get some water. And I'll just follow along, and then we'll talk about it after.
All right, let's segue from Jen's nice talk about decompressing the torso and the wonderful rationale about that into some unilateral stability and decompression.
Which we just went over, right? So that's the most important part, is breathing. It's one of the great pelvic floor engagers, is just breathing. Long, slow breaths. I think most movies, they'll show like somebody in labor and they're just like they're hyperventilating. What you should be doing is kind of going through, fighting through those cramps and those pains.
Question work. So Kristen, will you step forward with your right foot?
It all sounds well and good until you're there.
Keep your hips as square forward as possible. So in this position, we're going to let the back heel come up just about an inch or so. The front foot has those same 3 points of contact, big toe joint, small toe joint, and the heel kind of spreading away from each other as they push into the ground. The back foot has 2 points of contact, just the
especially in this position, I'll add it because it's something we've talked about before, is a lot of times we'll step back, we want to go into this long runner's lunge, and if you watch my back, it tends to arch.
Yeah, okay.
So you can even do what we just did, is even less quickly just run through a quick trace to engage, and then just step back a little bit. It's better to keep it close.
It makes you crunch a little.
Yeah. In the gym, we do this B stance just because it's great, because it keeps the arch out of your back. You're able to more engage, just like a little kickstand, and that back foot is kind of lifting me up. Especially if you have pain, you can be more here, where that back toe is almost in line with the heel. Not on a balance beam. You're still, walking stride widthwise. You're just not back in this big runner's lunge. So I'll even trace up. Maybe I'll come down here and then pull myself up where I'm starting to weight that back foot. And that'll keep that L3 from pushing forward. A lot of people struggle with that third lumbar, just traveling forward. It's already at like the apex of the arch, so it tends to go forward. So really fight that one. Feel the difference there between just stepping back, even just thinking about it, engaging. You don't really have to be that crazy with it. But you kind of start in a hinge, and then you can pull yourself up into that position. You notice that front foot will grip. It's holding on to the mat, almost like you're dragging it towards you as the back heel pulls a little bit, but the whole structure goes with it, versus me just. Right. It matters.
One of the best things is when you show those.
You don't want foundation training to hurt you, because then I look bad. That's why I beat these points down.
Again, spreading away from each other. The hips are lined up to the best of your ability. You're not on a balance beam, though. Okay? Chin back, chest up. We're going to elongate to the best of our ability here. When you elongate, it should almost feel like the higher you lift the head and neck, the more your feet and legs try to pull at each other. It feels almost like a pair of scissors closing towards center. Bring your arms just about belly or chest height, somewhere right around there, right around this area, and we're just going to breathe more or less straight behind the middle finger here. So the middle finger is pushing away from you.
Sorry, Dr. Goodman. Same idea. As we already got this. We'll just be like, we arch, we lose it. So really think about that. Keeping that tight as the arms are raising. This is fighting to pull back and then come up. Maybe even go a little bit low and raise so the pelvis is pulling away from the hands as they're raising up. Don't let your body. Always keep step one.
Very wide at the shoulders, and then you're breathing into sort of the circumference around the back of the rib cage right there, trying to elevate everything upwards. There's not a hip hinge here. Instead, it's your entire body trying to lift straight away from the feet to be as tall as you can. The back ankle is very slowly going to slowly pull down, and then the whole body is going to pull up away from it to lift the ankle back up. Slowly pulse it down.
Remember, don't arch to drop it.
Let's do 2 more of those.
Let it pull your belly button back. It's pulling everything back.
Work with hip extension as it dorsiflexes. Keep the skull long, neck long, big deep breath into the chest, and then let's go ahead and switch legs. Let the arms relax. If you need to, shake it off.
And in this posture, it's okay to even be like, because I'm always saying, get the hips behind you. It's okay to even be a little bit, I'm here, and I'm going to pull back my skull. My skull is now pulling back. That's okay, as long as I'm lengthening. As long as we set this first, I can then lift and pull back with my skull. In this position, it's really great, because then it looks even better when we bring it into this position.
It sure does.
Right, don't look like that. So you're overcorrecting. Just make sure, because a lot of people already lifted their head first. They automatically do this, and then L3 is pulled forward.
When you're pregnant like this, we're not trying to train you. I don't want you to get very, very strong. I want you to repattern as often as you can so that your hips are stable, hip hinging is easy, and breathing is as easy and powerful as possible. So the left foot is forward, the right foot is back, the hips are more or less square.
I did this
You're
backwards.
Not on a balance here. Chin back, chest up, breathing
Don't watch
into
me.
the circumference of the torso.
Oh, you're following me.
The front of the rib cage, the side of the rib cage, the back of the rib cage.
We're all over the place. You're the only one doing it right.
Lifting away from the growing abdomen, creating some space for your growing baby. Push the arms away from you, and again, you're lifting so tall
Facebook thinks I'm
that
right,
it feels
though.
like the legs are trying to close.
It's
like
mirrored.
a pair of scissors, but not too hard. Think 10 to 15 pounds of pressure, that's all. Just enough to feel it. 2 more breaths. When you do this breath, you're actively lifting up on the inhalation, and you're just trying your best not to let the rib cage fall back down entirely as you exhale. A little bit of retention of height and width as you exhale. Go ahead and step out of that. So that was the lunge decompression. We're going to now go from a lunge decompression into a subtle shift called a spiral lunge. In the spiral lunge, we're going to teach you a subtle medial rotation of the back leg. So let's start again with the right leg forward, left leg back.
I'm just going to stay here.
It begins
So I'm
in
right.
that exact same position as the lunge decompression. Chin back, chest up.
Be right for
Big,
once in my
tall
life.
Torso, arms ahead of you. Your body weight is 50-50, front to back here. Throughout the entire process, your body weight is 50% on the front leg, 50% on the back leg. The spiral lunge is a very simple shift from a lunge decompression to the back hip simply rotating towards the front inner thigh. So that back left hip is going to try to close towards the front inner thigh like a little convergence towards the center of you. Again, 10 to 15 pounds of pressure, enough to feel the activation of the groin muscles and that hip.
So don't go with the arms, just think about the hip.
If there's a subtle rotation of the torso with it, that's fine. But it really is that finite, almost obnoxiously detailed
just the subtle bit.
That we're paying
Watch me,
attention
Heather.
to, helping with eventual
That's all.
abdominal pain, eventual
Just from the hip.
cases for diastasis recti and different things like that that could occur during pregnancy. Very likely won't, but could. And this primes your body to be able to contend with them later after you've delivered. Let's go ahead and switch legs. Left leg forward, right leg back.
I know, because we do that in the woodpecker position, the woodpecker rotations.
Different.
It's a bigger motion.
Yeah.
This one I want you to just think about that hip. It's internally rotating. So we've got everything nice and stacked. The hip is just coming in just a hair. And the left isn't going with it. It's fighting to stay there. So technically both are closing in.
Oh my gosh. That's good. Yeah,
So
right.
pulling in that, you'll feel that left, the grounded front leg has to fight even more. I want to say left because actually we're all on left. Okay.
Yeah.
So the arms just a little bit. Especially when we first start doing this, a lot of us
Oh my god.
rotate from the spine and the knees kind of going out. And you're like, yeah, I guess I feel something happening. Should be intense. Less is more.
I wasn't getting what he was saying. Here we go.
You're picking up what he's throwing down.
Nice, powerful stance. The whole basis of these positions is how powerful is your stance. How much of your pressure is going through your feet, pushing against the ground, standing your body up as big and powerful as it can be. Once you're in that position, the movement is very small. The back right hip is just going to move subtly inward towards the front inner thigh, like one side of a scroll trying to close towards the center. The focus of this is this big width at the back of the body. So you can pulse kind of two ways here. You can pulse your breath bigger and bigger into the back of your ribs, or like we did at that first lunge decompression, you can pulse that back ankle up and down a few times, just to create a little bit of additional motion in an otherwise relatively isometric, isotonic position. Come on out of that, shake your arms off a little bit. So now what we're going to add here is one simple finishing move for each of the next series. When you come out of these poses, I want you to give yourself a little bit of an additional elevation. So Kristen, you're going to kind of cradle underneath your belly as if you were lifting up your baby a little bit here. You're not just going to lift so that it closes the front of you using your biceps and your shoulders. In fact, you're going to hold this and stand up very tall from there. That in and of itself will give you a subtle lift. As you engage the back of your shoulders, the back of your lat muscles in particular, and pull your head up, provide a little 5-pound additional lift just right up here, giving that subtle space and kind of carriage. A little support.
The food, baby.
And you're going to take 5 or 6 breaths, not decompression breaths, but right where you feel the tension, you're going to allow your lower belly and lower diaphragm to relax into the inhale. So as you're lifting up with your hands in the back of your shoulders, you're going to breathe into the low belly, the supported low belly. Try to find as much anterior, lateral, and posterior space as possible during this recovery breath from the decompression work that we just did. After you've done maybe 5 or 6 breaths like that, let your shoulders relax, and we'll get into the next video soon.
Send that to my daughter. Oh, is she pregnant? Yeah, she's pregnant.
Oh, nice. This is well timed. And the round ligament pain that often happens because you got the uterus, the round ligament comes and it goes through this little hole here, the obturator foramen. So Phil's got a funky pelvis. But most of us, we're actually kind of lifting that pubic bone up, because a lot of times in pregnancy we posterior pelvic tilt and we like come here. So it just sways forward and there's a lot of strain on that, especially one side over the other. But we're kind of shortening that ligament if you want to think about it. We're lengthening everything else, but that's pulling up and we're setting our weight back. Even post-pregnancy and or pretty much all of us in our culture, our hips come forward. And the foundation training is forward. So we want the foundation under the spine. Lifting the torso, stacking it on the hips, Now they're supporting it. That's going to take pressure off there as well as the joints here. And look at that disc right there. It's at the L3. It knows. Whoever made this model knows. Not that that's where most herniations happen. It's just that's the one that's good for. I just like to think about that one being there.
Yeah.
It's not like we're just sucking that in. It's the whole structure coming back. And I really like those pulses because we do that a lot in the running class. And they can be kind of, come on, Phil, really easy until you kind of get the idea that you're pulling everything back. That can become very powerful. That heel, it's dragging everything behind you. And then you're coming back up top. You should feel that front foot, that tripod, 3 points of contact, really gripping. And not just arching it out. So we arch, we close all the space in the back. Like you said, thinking about breathing, spreading the shoulder blades, spreading the tight fascia on the opposite side of the diaphragm, getting that pelvic floor to engage, support our spine. Heavy lifting is good. It's the negative sometimes where you got the weight, you're doing a squat, you just kind of drop and you rebound off the pelvic floor. That first, you weren't there for it, but that initial thing we did where you're kind of slowly coming down. A lot of people do that with weights. It's really good for the pelvic floor because it's like, got it, engaging, and then drive up. That's good. Versus just kind of rebounding off the joints, your knees and your ankles. I see it all day long. You can go heavier that way, but safer this way, especially if you're injured. A lot of people skip the gym, but we want to build our load tolerance, right? So when we add weight, you have to lift up against it. So it's good. And, the hip thrusters, like we did, you can add weight. It all helps the spine. It really challenges your body. Most of us just compress because there's nothing challenges. Here we're imagining gravity, we're imagining tension, pushing against the tight areas in our body, but adding some weight is a good idea. Going heavy. Wow, it's 6:30 already.
Wow.
Almost.
Wow, so fast.
There's a lot of stuff. It's more talking than torture.
I'm back.
Get back. We'll get back to running tomorrow.
Oh, we will?
And the whole next week.
Okay.
We'll do some plyometrics. So that's kind of like we did balance. So yeah, we'll start adding some jumping and challenge.
Make her balance on her toes. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
She didn't get to do this.
I still practice that like
Alright, show me.
about the day. I'm terrible at it. Okay,
let him show
I'll
you.
do my left foot just.
Yeah, so can you
45 seconds on your toes.
balancing on your toes?
I can't do it.
Stand on
Just
your toes.
on your
It was a long day.
toes.
No, just one.
On
Good.
Just
leg.
one toe.
Yeah, there you go.
Ooh.
For 45 seconds. Yeah, but you don't have to go all the way up like a
Yeah,
point.
no.
Yeah, no, you don't have to go up.
Oh, but you just have to keep your heel off. Yeah.
It's hard.
There you go.
I only know how to go
She only knows how to go off point.
Yeah.
Practice it
You can go all the way up.
You can do it that way.
Yeah. It hurts. Halfway.
That's why I like the mat. It's
Yeah.
nice.
I just need the bar.
And if you're too good at it, I make you hold the kettlebell. So
Oh, really? I'll practice so I can get more torture.
Right.
One foot.
one
Yeah,
foot.
And you can do it with your son on your back.
Practice your pistol squats, shrimp squats.
I'll practice.
Yeah. So some of the ones we did for running are on his site.
Facebook? Yeah. Awesome.
Yes, yeah.
I've watched
You
a
might like
couple.
those. Oh, have you? Good.
Yeah, I just haven't been able to come because we switched jobs and everything kind of switched up.